Before we get into this episode, there's something that might be of interest that I wanted to tell you about. Scene and Herd, who run this podcast, have been asked by Scotland Food and Drink to undertake a strategic review of the Scotland Food and Drink Excellence Awards. Now, these Excellence Awards have been going for almost 20 years and are a huge mainstay of the food and drink sector. But it's time to ensure that they're still relevant. So if you have ever been involved in the Scotland Food and Drink Excellence Awards, or even if you've ever had an opinion about them, we would love for you, please, to complete our survey. So if you go to the OnFARM Twitter, which is at @on_farm UK, and click the link in the bio, there will be a tab in there that will take you to the survey, and it should only take you a very short while to complete, but we would be enormously grateful.
Hello! Welcome to Series 5 of OnFARM, Scotland's rural podcast. It's Monty here, and it's brilliant to have you back with us after our summer break. We start the series, and I hope it's not a sign of things to come, with a flat tyre.
So my dad's heading to town. I've got to get this off for him so that he can get it changed.
So Stornoway is the closest place for something like that?
There's a garage here as well, but they might not have the right size.
So that's Domhnall Macsween, crofter, councillor and BBC Alba TV presenter from the Isle of Lewis. Domhnall is the subject of our first 2 episodes back, and I'm pleased to say we're making these with the support from Scottish Rural Network.
Anyway, that's it. Easy peasy. I'll chuck this round here and he can take that away with him when he comes.
I'll hand over to OnFARM producer Dave Howard now, because Dave's been to visit Domhnall at his home in Lewis in the Western Isles.
Domhnall Macsween is a crofter honum on the niche on the Nyelan Loish. I'm Domhnall Macsween and I'm a crofter in Ness in the Isle of Lewis.
You scared me then, because while I think it's incredibly important that we represent and support Gaelic and all the other languages of the British Isles, I don't speak any of them. So, you'll have to bear with me.
Yeah, well, I've learnt English. I didn't have English when I went to school. So you've got no excuses.
You'll need to give me a while. I'll come back in a couple of years when I've learned to do it in Gaelic.
I'll talk about myself then. One of my specialist subjects. So I was born and raised in a crofting family. All my first memories are with my grandfather working on the sheep. My father was a fisherman before he retired. My mother was a teacher, but they were both crofters. But we were always livestock.
And that's very common, isn't it? People will be a crofter and...
Yeah, I mean, most crofters have a main source of income. So, my grandfather was a crofter Harris tweed weaver and a crofter school janitor. My mother was a crofter teacher, crofter college lecturer. My dad was a crofter fisherman, which is a very common one. And then today you've got crofter solicitor, crofter MP, crofter... Oh, whatever.
TV celebrity?
TV presenter, yeah. So all and crofter, oil offshore worker, There are so many different varieties. And I think that crofting fits in well with that kind of lifestyle and that mindset that is it's bringing in it's multiple sources of income, which is kind of like what you need here as well. We're very reliant on the public sector for employment here, but also the fact that a lot of people choose not to be full-time either, because crofting is a lifestyle choice as well. I went away to university to do maths in 2001. I didn't like it, so I came home. I did a degree here in Stornoway. That was me. I wasn't going to go away again. I knew that. So my parents recognised that as well, and they had 2 family crofts at the time, and one of them was gifted to me for my 21st. So I've been a crofter since 2005. I was a broadcast journalist for the BBC for a while, and I remember working with a cameraman one day, and I tongue-in-cheek said to him, I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. And he said, you do, it's your sheep, you just haven't figured it out yet. And always stuck with me what he said. And after that, after I left the BBC, I went to the council here and I worked for a European funded project providing opportunities for young people to stay in the Western Isles through enterprise. And that's a line I've rattled off quite a few times. And, we were talking about them. It's like, don't necessarily get a degree just for the sake of getting a degree. Follow your passion and make it work for you so that, make money from it later. And I was going around preaching this to all these kids. It's like, I'm not doing it myself. So 2014, one day I got up and I had done no market research. I didn't have a hen house or anything, and I ordered 320 hens. It's like, right, I better start planning.
Better buy a book.
I learn by doing. I don't learn by reading. So built a hen house, got everything sorted. I went from 5 days a week at the council to 3.5. That was from 2014, and then in 2017 I went full time. So I've been full time at it for 5 years. The eggs were the difference because that provided me an income all year round. So that meant that I wasn't reliant on seasonal sales of livestock or meat boxes or anything like that. It made it more viable. I've been doing that for a while, and I've been selling, pigs. So I sell pork or wieners. I sell beef boxes. I sell lamb boxes, and I sell the eggs all year round. And then I diversified a bit and knitting yarn. Made my own Harris tweed. Lots of different things, changing the style of sheep as well. If you'd said to me 10 years ago that I was going to have Hebrideans and Shetlands, I would have said, not a chance. But, they don't cost a lot, and they give you meat and wool. So you've got that, you've got a good quality product that comes off them. The same with the cattle, Highland cows, so they kind of look after themselves as well. They're built for this environment.
When we were speaking, you and I, to set up this chat, and for me to come out here to the very north of Lewis to Ness here to speak to you, you said something that made me laugh, and it really was my first, I suppose, proper introduction to what crofting really means. You said to me, do you know what a croft is? I said, well, no, not really. And you said, a croft is a piece of land surrounded by legislation.
Yes.
Which made me smile.
It makes me cry. It's, I think that's the best description for it, because crofting was obviously, it was set up to provide people with land that they could use to provide food for their families. It's the security of tenure that crofting brought, because people were living here before and then they'd be moved off the land. They might just be like, 5 years in this patch of land, they're hauling sand and seaweed from the shore, breaking their backs to improve this bit of land. Then the landlord can say, right, I'm taking over this lovely fertile ground, you go over there and start it all again. So and you've got that, and you've got the clearances where people were forcibly removed or encouraged to emigrate. You lost vast numbers of people. So when people had security of tenure, they knew that anything that they were doing to the land was for their own benefit or for their family. And I suppose it does make sense that they had to have a framework. They had to put legislation in place that stopped people maybe from profiteering down the line or from abusing the system. So there's lots of restrictions on what you can and can't do. I am the tenant of my croft. I don't own the land, but I can pretty much do with the land what I want. I actually technically am an owner as well, because this is a community-owned estate, but you could be the landlord here, but you couldn't do anything on my land without my permission. And if you did, say for example, you were the landlord and you wanted to put a wind turbine up, you'd have to give me 50%. The one thing is, I've just recovered from COVID. I've done work already today and I'm knackered, so we're not going to do too much walking.
Right.
So jump in the pickup.
Okay, that's fair enough.
We'll go up here and we can have a. In fact, we'll go around the back of the school. You can see when we go round, you can see every fence we've got here. Each fence is a different croft. So all these crofts, that's a croft, that's a croft, that's a croft. So the crofts here, they're strip crofts, so 25 metres wide and around about a mile long. The crofts are done like that so that you get the full spectrum of fertility, basically. The closer you are to the shore, the more fertile it is, sandier soil. The further inland you come, the peatier it is and the less fertile. When they were divvying up the land, you could have had some people have all the fertile land in on the shore, and then other people have the less fertile land inland. But this was the fairest way to do it, so you do have that full spectrum. In Ness, this northern tip of Lewis, there's, I don't know, around about 800 people, and we've got everything we need. So, you know, we've got a petrol station and a shop here, we've got a butcher. Some rural communities don't have any shops. We've got the population to sustain 2-3 post offices. But then the real stuff that provides the infrastructure for our community is all community owned and run. And I think this is kind of where the crofting mindset affects our community a lot, where there's a lot of just get up and go. If you want something done, you have to do it yourselves. Local, central government, you know, whether that be the local council here or the Scottish government or the Westminster government, we are far removed from them. If we were relying on them to provide infrastructure and facilities for us, then we'd still be waiting. So our community has done it. It's not just this, it's not even this generation, it's for the last 40-50 years they've been putting facilities in place that are fantastic.
And do you think some of that comes from being such an isolated, rural, cut-off place? You just have to do these things for yourself.
Whoa! You're throwing words out there. What are we cut off from? What are we isolated from? At least you didn't use the word remote. But you tell me, what am I isolated from?
No, I suppose it's good to play devil's advocate, but a lot of the people we talk to on the podcast are big cereal farmers in East Lothian, or, you know, cattle farmers in Aberdeenshire. It's a very different way of life, a ridiculously different way of life to what you're doing out here.
But you can be surrounded by people and be all alone. I'm not alone. I know 90% of the people within a 2-3 mile radius. If you compared me living here to somebody who lives in maybe a block of flats, or, you know, a street in Edinburgh, for example, I would know a higher proportion of the people around me than they do. And you can be all alone and isolated and all these things. They are cut off, but I've never felt like that here.
Yeah, no, certainly no argument from me on that score, right? You can tell the minute you get here, it's a very strong community.
So where we're passing just now, just on the left-hand side here, this used to be a secondary school. It used to be up to second year in the back there, and that's now the one primary school for the whole area. But attached onto the end is a £1.7 million sports centre that was fundraised for, built and run by the community for the community. So that's a sustainable business that's running there. And now we're coming down to another place. You know, this is my second home, the football pitch. I've been the goalie here for 20 years. I'm the manager of the team now. Again, you know, facilities like this with an SFC social club beside it, community owned and run, both these things. So that's a community owned and run pub basically, because this used to be a dry parish and you couldn't get a drink. So by having a private members club, that was the way around being able to sell alcohol. And then the playground here, there's another community owned run award-winning playground, and you can fill in the blanks later and tell how good the playground is.
Yeah, just to let people know, I'm on a bit of a busman's holiday. The whole family are here in Lewis, and I've taken time out from the family to have a chat with Donald. Now, you don't go by Donald, do you? You prefer Sweeny?
Well, there are lots of Donalds here, so
it's practical.
It's practical. I go. So my surname is Macsween. When I was in primary school, there was only 6 of us in my primary class, and 2 of us were called Donald, or Doel is how we in Gaelic how we say it. So having 2 people, you know, 1/3 of your class with the same name, nicknames are a big thing here. In our we've got our own local phone book as well for the area, and the phone book has name, address, and nickname, because you don't know the real name of a lot of people. You only know them by their nicknames. Patronymics are a big thing. So your patronymic would be my mother is from Ness, my father is from Scarpe. So my mother's patronymic in Ness is Anna Vortic. Annie, daughter of Murdo, son of Murtic. So it's very old school stuff, but that's still used today. That kind of naming system is in place, is that informal naming system is probably more popular here than the formal one.
And actually more useful, as you say.
Yeah, if you came, when people say, "Oh, do you know Domhnall Macsween from Ness?" Well, yes, I could probably.
Which one?
I could probably rattle off 10. So yeah, it's I wouldn't go anywhere else. I mean, I went away to Glasgow. I think the default position used to be, if you're smart, you have to leave the island, and that was kind of me when I left school. It was like, well, you're capable. Off you go. You go to Glasgow, get a degree. So I went off to do maths, and I was home within 6 months. I was home the week before lambing and the week before the local football season started, because we play summer football here. So those were the things that were important to me, and city life wasn't for me. And that was good, because I wasn't then in my mid-20s, or even now in my, I was going to say mid-30s, but I'm late 30s now.
We're all getting older, sadly, yeah.
So I'm not sitting here in my late 30s thinking, oh, I wonder what it'd be like if I went and lived in the city or something like that. So yeah, it's I wouldn't go anywhere else.
So we've just gone over a cattle grid. We have left Ness now. We've left the...
Well, no, you haven't left Ness.
Well,
You've left...
You're going to argue the toss about everything, aren't you?
Details are important.
We've left the town, I will say, and we're on a small single track road going up into the... Oh my goodness, and off to the right there is a lovely beach.
So this is Stow. I'm just taking you up to the lighthouse right now, the Butterlewis Lighthouse. And you can see that red brick shed there. This is where the supplies, before there was roads, this is where the supplies were landed for the lighthouse. So the lighthouse was built, I think it was in 1862, and they used to come in here with all the supplies, and the lighthouse keepers lived on location.
And has there always been a fairly large community here?
This is the smallest this community has been in years. So next door to my croft is my old primary school, and it closed about 10 years ago with 15 pupils. In my time there was about 50, and about 100 years ago there was 250 kids in that school. There was 3 schools in Ness, in fact 4 schools in Ness. So there would have been, I don't know, the best part of 1,000 kids, and today maybe 50, 60, 70 kids, something like that. So this is the smallest the population has been in a long time. So this is us arriving at the Butterlewis Lighthouse, the most northwesterly point of the British Isles, pretty much. So I thought we're as well coming. If you've come all the way here, you're as well coming and having a wee nosy around. So you're talking about 180 miles north is the Faroe Islands, 50 miles east is the mainland, and about 2,000 miles that way is Newfoundland, Canada.
And I know you don't like these words like isolated and remote and all the rest of it, but can I say it's special?
Yeah, that's okay. That's acceptable. Are you on edge now?
Well, we are on the edge of, as you say, the northwest edge of Britain.
Yes, you're right on a cliff edge, so be very careful.
One of the things that fascinates me, again, we're not calling it remote, but is how you get inputs in and then where you sell things to afterwards.
Yeah, this is the difficult thing, because there's added costs getting anything here, and there's added costs getting anything away from here. So that stretch of water between us and the mainland basically adds costs on. I think even buying a 4x4 bale of hay, which you can't really make hay here because of our climate. It's wet. A lot of people make silage, but hay isn't really viable anymore. It's got milder and wetter over the past 40-50 years. So hay isn't really viable, and when I buy in 4x4 round bales, and this year they were about, I think it was 46 quid to begin with. And I know, asking other people, they're paying maybe 20 to 25 pounds. People on the mainland are paying 20, 25 pounds for their round bales. So the haulage is a big cost. So your feed costs are increased anyway because of the haulage. And then when you're selling them, you're pretty much losing £5 a head on store lambs. You can sell them in Stornoway. I sell in Stornoway or Dingwall. And roughly speaking, because the buyer is paying for the haulage, then you're £5 a head worse off in Stornoway. But then because the seller is paying for the haulage to Dingwall, you get that extra £5, but you've spent that at least £5 on the haulage out there. But what really frustrates me, I do meat boxes as well, in the autumn. I have sent a lamb meat box from here 11 o'clock one morning, and it was in Norfolk for 9 a.m. the next day. Now, if it's possible that way, then why on earth can't people send stuff to me? It's the same plane and vans that it travels on. Right now we're in the village of Port of Ness. We're just going to turn in the harbour and then head back up. This place is always busy with tourists as well, so it's quite a nice harbour here. We'll just turn and you can have a wee look.
I was trying to get a sense of that. So how touristy does this area get in the summer holidays? Obviously, we've come out of season a bit.
Yeah, it's just getting busy just now. We're in June just now. This is a tourist who's just abandoned their vehicle in the middle of the road because they don't know if this is the end of the road or not. Like I said, I've got lots of patience. So yeah, I mean, we're not as bad as like Skye and Harris and places like that where they're overrun.
It's because you're more remote.
So have you got walking boots on? So there you go. We've got beaches as well. It's a nice beach, a nice harbour.
Oh wow! Look at that.
We're here on a rubbish day. If you were just sent a snapshot of the sea and the sand, turquoise seas there and the sand, you could almost think it was the Caribbean. But then as soon as you open the door, it's not.
As soon as you got in the water, you definitely know it's not.
Aye, so it is. I'm also, so this is a community-owned estate. We had a community buyout here 15 years ago, and we own all the land around here. It's 56,000 acres, and we bought it for £600,000. So I'm one of the directors of the trust.
Sorry, say that again. For how many acres? For how many pounds?
56,000 for 600,000.
Right. Okay.
A pretty good deal. And when you see issues in other places today, with green lairds coming in, multinationals or billionaires or people from far remote buyers coming in and and buying up the land, and they're going to rewild it or they're going to plant it full of trees, and they forget that there's people, there's communities that live in these places, and what's happening there is rural communities are being sacrificed so that multinationals or people who live far away can carry on as they are. We're the ones who are giving up land for trees. We're giving up land for peat restoration. They're doing away with jobs. So and I mean there's it's become a polarized debate, but our voices are really heard from that side of things. The reason I'm talking about this just now is because we own this land. There's no danger that's going to happen here. It's with our approval that anything will happen. No remote absentee landlord is going to sell up or agree to doing projects without our agreement.
It's such a live issue at the moment, that, isn't it? This green layered stuff, planting hectares and hectares of trees to farm the carbon credits almost. But you're saying that you're safe here from that ever happening because of that community buyout 15 years ago.
Yeah, we're safe from it, and if it does happen, we are the ones that are going to benefit, not if we want to sell carbon credits. And carbon credits aren't the silver bullet that we thought they were going to be. I assumed when all this carbon credit stuff was going to be coming on, that I was like, oh, we're going to make a killing out of this. But having looked at it, because the vast majority of our moorland is in pretty good condition. It's good. It is good condition. It hasn't been drained and, in quotation marks, improved in the past. Drained and reseeded and improved like that. Those are the places that they got probably grant funding and were able to improve that land in the past, and now they're being paid again to revert it to how it was before. So they've had the benefit of it, and now they're getting benefit again because we didn't get that initial benefit. We didn't, you're probably talking 50,000 acres of peatland here, roughly. You know, we didn't go and drain all of it and put it to grass and things. It's in its original state here. Because we didn't do that, we're now not going to get additional benefit now of when we repair it and sell the carbon credits to somebody else. So we'll just go down the track here. So you can see here all, you know, every fence. It's a different croft, and you see the odd few sheep there. They're my stragglers. The last one's to lamb. So they've just had lambs in the past 3 weeks or so.
And access-wise, there's a gate at one end, and you can just go all the way down the strip through. You know.
Aye, yeah. Which is great in the summer, but in the winter, even with a quad, it can be difficult at times going. You know, if you've got a high traffic gate that you go through a lot, and it just turns into mud, and that's great. But the opportunities we've got today, you know, in terms of tourism, you know, a couple of pods here would be great, you know, something like that. But it's getting access, it's services, it's all that kind of stuff. When you've got a long strip croft and you're a mile away from services, then it's not viable to be, you know, to be doing anything with, you know, on these crofts. And
you're much less accessible if you're the one 3 strips in from the lane.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a tourist.
Dog walker.
He's got a camper van. I was talking to him on Saturday. There's a dog come past us. Yeah. So this road. So you can see this road here, and then so there's a lane that cuts through the crofts all the way along there, and that's Rathmore and Haramon, the big road of the sermon. This is the route that people used to walk to go to church.
Okay.
So things like that, and then here, if you can see over to my right hand side, see how there's a dip in the middle just here. There's like that kind of diagonal. That was the football pitch in the village. So the wingers would be 2-3 feet higher up off the ground, of ground level than the central defenders. So this is one of my favourite places. Just come into the beach here, particularly in the winter. I'll come in here 9 o'clock Sunday morning with the dogs, and they'll just have a blast. And they'll have a blast over here. I think so we're just down on the beach, and this is Tregal Dell Beach, and there's some golden sand, but there's a lot of stone and seaweed that comes in here as well. We'll cross over, and we can. I'll just leave it on the other side of the river.
This is great. I'm getting the full North Lewis tour here.
Exactly. Yeah,
Macsweeny's tours.
I've done this before. I know what kind of rubbish you guys love.
Should we jump out?
We'll jump out. I'm interested in having a wee look just to see if there's any dead birds washed up, because there's lots of avian flu on the go just now. We've had. Are you aware of the gucke? We're in Ness. We eat gannets. So does that ring any bells for you?
Yeah.
The gannets are taken from a rock 40 miles north, Solishkith, which is Gannet Rock in Gaelic. I don't know how viable it's going to be for them to go out this autumn, because if the population has been decimated by bird flu, then it might not be viable at all.
I've seen a couple of dead gulls actually at various beaches.
Yeah, that's what it'll be. I'm just going to go here and have a look. I haven't been here in a couple of weeks. I can't see any. There's lots of seaweed being washed up, and yeah, if I had a big tractor, I would come and take away all the seaweed.
And feed it the cows.
Well, yeah, that's definitely an option, but cut down the methane in their farts. But I think more along using it as a fertiliser.
How has being more sort of aware of climate change impacted the way that you do things on the Croft?
It's fine saying to people, how have the impacts of climate change affect how you heat your home? You can say, oh, it'd be good to do this for going green, it'd be good to do this, do that. Doesn't make any difference. It's what makes your business viable, what makes your home viable. That is what counts. You can, everything else is just talk. Oh, there's a fish jumping. You're not very observant, are you?
I'm looking at you. Looking at you, looking at my microphone, making sure the levels are recording.
You get blasé about it all. Seeing eagles, seeing the northern lights, sitting at the beach at 3 o'clock on a Monday afternoon. I'm at work just now.
Me too.
But I'm the one doing all the work. This place is spectacular on the very best and the very worst days. You know, when you got 100-mile-an-hour winds and the waves are breaking higher than the lighthouse. And
at least you know you're alive.
Yes. When I was out here on Friday, there was 14 deer and 2 sea eagles. So they all appeared. I shouted the cows, and the deer and the eagles popped up at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah, but it happens quite a lot. You know, you get blasé about it. I see the northern lights once a month. I see eagles twice a week. It's part and parcel of life.
That was absolutely brilliant. Great to get the perspective of Lewis crofter Domhnall Macsween, or Sweeny. He was speaking with OnFARM producer Dave Howard, and I'm pleased to say that we've got the second half of their chat for you next Monday. This episode of OnFARM was made with support from the Scottish Rural Network, and many thanks to them for their support. And speaking of supporters and partners for OnFARM, I'm very pleased to tell you, in fact I'm delighted to tell you, that we are just starting a new 12-month sponsorship partnership with law firm Gillespie McAndrew. They are the firm that provide NFU Scotland's legal helpline, so they are very much in touch with rural Scotland and rural Scottish business. We are delighted, and if anyone else wants to come on board and support us, they would be most welcome too. But what a brilliant partner to have on board in Gillespie McAndrew. As you know by now, OnFARM is Scotland's rural podcast, with farm meaning food, agriculture and rural matters. And this pod is made by our team at Scene&HerdPR and Marketing. Please do get in touch with us anytime with any rural or food-based marketing or comms questions. That's it for this episode. See you next time with more from Sweeny on the Isle of Lewis.
So this is us going out the Peat Road, the road to the common grazing. So either side of the road right now are our common grazing village parks. We've just come over the cattle grid, and this is us on the open moor. So there's nothing between us here and Stornoway on the other side of the island.
Wow.
So this is probably the kind of roads you thought you were coming to. This is a peat road, so this is just... Well, how do you describe it? It's basically just...
Bumpy.
But very bumpy, carved out of the peat. It's for taking the peats home, or accessing the peats.
That's it from me. Bye for now.